The next speaker, Professor Anna Lise Gordon, our Interim Director for the Institute of Education. Anna Lise's research is very much into the resilience of teachers, and I think that will come out in her presentation to you this afternoon. But like me, actually, Anna Lise has a huge love of the mountains and climbing and walking, but literally dwarfs me because she has reached the giddy height, she tells me, of 23,500 feet in her walking, which I'm not quite sure whether this feels to hear, whether that is higher or lower than Everest Base Camp, but...
you tell the difference in meters, I'm still in feet.
Yeah. But it's still an incredible achievement, although you did say it was a year or two ago. So without any further ado from me, Anna Lise, over to you.
Thank you. Bouncing back in style. So I've got just 8 minutes now to share my professional passion with you. It's resilience. Resilience, as you might be not surprised to hear given my job, the resilience more specifically of early career teachers. What it is that nurtures their resilience in the profession, what it helps them to not only survive, but thrive for the longer term. Now, although my work is closely connected with early career teachers, I'm hoping to provide some food for thought for you as you make inevitable connections in your own lives through my talk. We all need to develop resilience. I would argue we all need to bounce back in style almost every minute of every day. Resilience is needed in all aspects of life. There's constant disruption, isn't there, in everything we do? And as Zolli and Healy note, constant disruption requires better shock absorbers. For example, not far from where we are now, the disruptive and unpredictable tidal flow of the River Thames has necessitated the building of a barrier, a resilience to flooding. Resilience is needed in global financial markets. It's needed in the fight against diseases. It's needed, dare I say it, in Brexit negotiations. And I could go on. And here's why. Progress is rarely linear. In fact, more often than not, in my own life, as well as yours, I would imagine, progress is messy. And we need a certain amount of resilience to keep our eye fixed through small steps on the ultimate goal. And then, of course, the goal moves. When I ask early career teachers, the students I work with, to define resilience, they nearly always come up with the definition of, oh, it's about bouncing back in the face of adversity, bouncing back from challenge. For me, that's a reductionist notion of resilience, as I'll explain in a moment. Now, do you know what these are? They are Weebles. Weebles, a timeless toy through generations, changing only in design, but with a very well-known slogan, Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. You've got it. However hard a child bats a Weeble, eventually it returns to its upright position. However, drawing on my research with over 500 teachers over a number of years, this idea of bouncing back is most definitely a reductionist interpretation of resilience. In the right conditions, coping with challenges serves a much more formative process, I would argue. Instead of simply bouncing back to the previous position, resilience gives us the opportunity to grow and to flourish through the experience. And in my opinion, again, drawing on the research with these early career teachers, we need to view the line of resilience as a kind of continuum. At one end of the continuum line for resilience, there's a toughness, a stiffness, a grit, stiff upper lip if you like. And at the other end of the continuum line, just as important, there's a vulnerability, an openness to learning, a curiosity, a willingness to ask for help. Now, it doesn't matter where we are at any given moment on that continuum line. It all matters, but we do indeed need to know where we are so that we move backwards and forwards along that line. Cooper, who is a psychologist and expert in resilience, identifies 4 key sources of resilience: confidence, adaptability, a sense of purpose, and the importance of social support. And almost all experts, when they write about resilience, describe it as an unstable construct, that we know, but also one that can be learned and developed over time. I've got the privilege of working with trainee teachers, and they're all different. Indeed, they're all unique. Some are really confident as people, but they might lack a confidence in subject knowledge, for example. Some are super sociable, but they're not very good at asking for help when it's probably most needed. Some are adapting to perhaps a career-changing life from another previously successful career, and then they find the move back into university study, or even from one school placement to the next, which is the part of any teacher training course, they find that challenging. Almost all of the early career teachers embark on teaching with a strong sense of purpose. They have a desire that they're going to make a difference. It's a vocation in so many ways. But even that strongest sense of purpose can be disrupted when faced with constant challenge, sometimes high workload, considerable and conflicting demands from colleagues and parents, and of course the occasional challenging child or young person. And I think it's worth reflecting on these 4 areas of resilience. Where are we strongest at the moment? Where are we weakest? In fact, I'd like to set that for you as homework. You can tell I was a teacher once upon a time. Set homework, even in an 8-minute talk. I'd like to set you homework over the Christmas break, just to reflect on those 4 areas of resilience. None of them are negative. We just need to know where we are so we know how to move forward. I'm going to conclude my talk with 3 quotations from very different sources. Firstly, to maintain resilience, 2 very esteemed academics, Gu and Day, sound more like a chocolate pudding to me actually, Gu and Day, but anyway, they refer to the importance of equilibrium and agency. We need those to grow as teachers. Indeed, I'd argue we need them to grow as people. The everyday worlds of teachers that Gu and Day are here describing, the ones they have in mind, they're complex. But then so are most of our lives too. Resilience is needed if we're going to bounce back in style. Secondly, the words of a trainee teacher who's describing her learning journey through initial teacher training. Peaks and troughs, moments of sheer exhilaration, occasional fear and despondency. So how does a teacher cope with all of these disruptions, these ups and downs? Maybe by reflecting on those 4 key sources of resilience that I mentioned earlier. We need those not just in the bad times, not just in the troughs, not just in the moments of fear and despondency, but we need to focus on them in the good times too, in the moments of sheer exhilaration. And I can guarantee you they do happen in teaching more often than we dare to admit. But the reason for that is so that by thinking about them, we build and grow our resilience over time. Again, it applies to teachers. It almost certainly applies to all of us too. And my final quotation is from a novel. It's going to be from a novel by Giles Foden, entitled quite simply, Turbulence. It's a cracking read, actually, one for the Christmas break if you've never read it. It has nothing at all to do with teaching, but one of the protagonists at a key moment muses this. How in a world of disintegration and constant renewal, a continuum, a world of flow, one must find one's own rhythm exactly by recognising the incompleteness of the melody. For me, that encapsulates resilience for teachers, moments of disintegration, constant renewal and growth. And I'd argue that it's what makes the job of teaching so special, but it does require resilience. In our everyday world, through ups and downs of life, we need to know exactly where we are on that continuum line so that we can bounce back like Weebles to where we were before, but also grow and learn more in the process. Teaching is complex. It will always feel like an incomplete melody. We've never done the job to complete perfection. It's just impossible. But I would argue it's the best job in the world. But we do need to be resilient so we can bounce back in style.
Anna Lise, well done. Absolutely perfect timing. I remember a few years ago exchanging letters with a gentleman who played fly half for Wales and the British Lions called Cliff Morgan. And he wrote to me in a letter and said, teaching is not just about imparting knowledge, it's about inspiring. And I'm sure you all agree that had Anna Lise been teaching you or me, she would have been absolutely inspiring. That was fantastic, well done. And I think as well, it's a good time to say congratulations to all of your team, Anna Lise, for getting through, I know it's been said before, but I'll say it here, getting through the traumas, certainly the intensity and the resilience that you had to show over the last few weeks with Ofsted, so well done for that.